They say kids don't notice things, that children just play and forget. But when Elijah stopped singing in class, when he flinched every time someone raised a hand too fast, yeah, someone should have noticed. At Rosehollow Academy, the floor gleamed so bright you'd think even God himself walked barefoot there. Polished marble, gold-plated nameplates, designer backpacks lined like trophies. A place that prided itself on excellence, on order. But what they meant was uniformity. And Elijah never quite fit the frame. 5 years old. Brown skin like warm chestnut curls, clipped neat collar, crisp, yet somehow always wrinkled first. Not because of him, but because of how they looked at him. His teacher, Miss Juliet Warren, tall, tight smile, always smelled like lavender, and control never bothered to hide it. With the others, her voice danced. With Elijah, it dropped flat, cold as polished stone. "Sit there," she'd say, handing him leftovers. Don't touch that even when he hadn't. Wait your turn, even when he had waited longer than everyone else. And kids, they learn fast. Soon Elijah became the kid no one sat next to. The one picked last, if at all. One pale-haired boy even whispered, "Why is he even here?" Miss Warren heard. She shrugged. The aides looked uneasy sometimes, but they said nothing. One Miss Hannah once stepped forward, lips parted like she might speak. But Juliet shot her a look. And Hannah. She stepped back, eyes lowered, fingers clenched around the folder she held. Guilt lingered in her gaze, but silence won. Elijah. He never cried. He colored inside the lines, built Lego towers alone. When the others sang Twinkle, Twinkle, he mouthed the words, small hands in his lap, shoulders curled in like pages folding shut. Until that one Thursday. Golden sunlight slanted through the blinds. A slow, drowsy rhythm filled the bumblebee classroom. Elijah was coloring a duck, neat strokes yellow and calm, when Emma, the curly blonde whirlwind across from him, shoved her drawing forward. "Mine's fun. Yours is boring," she giggled, tugging at his paper. He smiled, faint, nervous. "I like mine." Voice barely there. She reached again too fast, grabbing his wrist, laughing. And just like that, the chairs screeched, a tangle of limbs. Both hit the floor with a thud. Emma cried, more startled than hurt. And Elijah froze. Miss Warren rushed over heels, clicking like judgment. "Oh, sweetie, are you okay?" she cooed, lifting Emma gently. She didn't even look at Elijah. I didn't mean..." Elijah began, voice cracking. She turned, eyes sharp. "Elijah, what did you do?" Her voice echoed. The room stilled. Even nap-time kids blinked awake. He shook his head. "She was playing..." I told you," she snapped, "no roughhousing. You don't just grab people." Her fingers pinched his ear sharp, practiced, then twisted. "Stand up," she hissed. "You should know better by now." He stood, legs trembling. Emma stopped crying, just stared, confused. One aide, Hannah, flinched again. Her foot shifted forward, but Juliet didn't break her stare. And Hannah. She lowered her gaze, stepped back, again. Juliet slammed Elijah's paper on the desk, creased now bent. "Sit down. Stay quiet. I don't want another word out of you today." Her voice dipped low, venom soft and steady. He sat. He didn't cry, just looked at the duck he'd been coloring. The lines blurred. Snack time came, fresh fruit and triangle sandwiches for the rest. For Elijah, a bruised banana, a yogurt cup already open. He didn't complain. He never did. Dismissal bell rang. Kids ran. Laughter, footsteps, hugs. Elijah. He walked out alone. Backpack bouncing head low. One aide mumbled, "Goodbye." He nodded. Nothing more. In the car ride home, city lights smeared across the glass. Elijah sat still. His fingers brushed his ear. Softly. Not to soothe. Just to remember. And then just a few words that cracked something inside. "Some kids just don't belong," Miss Warren had once muttered under her breath. Not loud enough to be caught, but loud enough to stick. Those same words triggered something else, something older, something buried deep in his mother's bones. Back home, Elijah said nothing. At dinner, he poked at his peas, chicken untouched. Usually he lit up when she walked in. Tonight, nothing. His mom, Valencia Dorsey, unbuttoned her blazer, still in slacks, still in control. But when she saw him rub his ear, she froze. Elijah, what happened to your ear? He hesitated, shrugged. I fell. Her eyes narrowed. Elijah, who did that? His napkin twisted in his hand. Miss Warren. But it wasn't bad. I tripped with Emma. She just got mad. He said it fast, like speeding would erase the pain. Valencia sat back. Her chest rose once slow, measured. She didn't speak. Not yet. Didn't yell. Didn't cry. But the air in the room changed. Not from panic, but from something colder, sharper. Elijah didn't know yet. Didn't know his mom once trained with the toughest. Didn't know she'd been the only black woman in her boot camp platoon humiliated on day one when a sergeant barked, "You think this place is for charity cases." Didn't know she held that memory like a blade, one she never pulled unless it was time. That night while Elijah slept, she didn't call a lawyer. She opened her laptop, pulled school records, board contacts, licensing files, not as Mayor Dorsey, but as a mother, as someone who had bled to earn her place in every room she walked into, as someone whose son had been taught silence. That would end. Tomorrow. The next morning, no press, no aides, no bodyguards, just Valencia plain cream blouse slacks and fire in her stride. She stepped through the polished glass doors of Rosehollow Academy like a woman walking into a courtroom, except she wasn't here to argue. She was here to witness. "Good morning," the receptionist greeted, eyeing her without recognition. "I'm just here to observe," Valencia said, calm, measured. "My son attends here." Something in her tone, flat but final, made the woman hesitate, then gesture politely down the hallway. Valencia walked past crayon-covered bulletin boards and pastel-painted walls. At the viewing window, she stopped, arms crossed, eyes still. Inside, the Bumblebee classroom hummed like nothing had happened. Elijah was already working alone again, meticulously stacking counting blocks. Miss Warren stood near the circle mat, her voice fake cheerful as she praised another child's drawing. Not once did she glance Elijah's way. Then it happened. A plastic cup toppled from Elijah's table water, slowly trailing toward the rug. His hand reached down, gentle, deliberate, and Miss Warren spun. Elijah again. Her voice rose sharp and venom-laced. "You need to learn some control." Her arm lifted, flat palm halfway raised, and for a second the whole room held its breath. Then the door opened, and everything stopped. Valencia stepped inside, silent, still. Her eyes locked on Miss Warren's, not loud, not angry, just inevitable. "Elijah," she said softly, "you can sit down now, baby. You're all right." Miss Warren's face turned pale. Her hand dropped. She stammered. "I didn't realize you were his mother." "That's the problem," Valencia said, her voice calm, her breath even. "If you had, maybe you would have pretended to care." Juliet straightened, trying to recover her composure. "With respect, Mrs. Dorsey Mayer." That single correction cut the air like a blade. Juliet blinked, then pushed forward, reaching for the only defense she had left. "Elijah has always been difficult. He doesn't listen. He's easily distracted." The other children follow your lead." Valencia interrupted. "They watched you ignore him, exclude him, humiliate him." Miss Warren's voice cracked just barely. "I treat all my students equally." "No," Valencia whispered. "You don't, and you never intended to." Around them, aides stood frozen, but one Miss Hannah stepped forward. "I've seen it too," she said, quiet but steady. Her voice trembled, but she kept going. "I didn't know the whole story. I should have said something sooner." Miss Warren turned sharp. "You're overstepping, Hannah." And just like that, Hannah flinched, took a step back. Her lips parted, but she didn't speak again. Her eyes met Elijah's apology shining behind the silence. Her knuckles whitened around the folder she held. Then she looked down and stepped back into the corner. Valencia saw it all, the fear, the shame, the silence that protects abusers more than any excuse ever could. Then came the kids. One girl, Emma, watched everything from her nap mat thumb in her mouth. Another whispered, "Is the teacher in trouble?" And in that quiet murmur, the room shifted. Some children stared, some turned away. A few, the ones who had giggled at Elijah behind his back, now looked confused, uncomfortable. It was the unraveling of a system. "I've already spoken to the board," Valencia said. "Effective immediately. You are relieved of your position." Juliet's face turned rigid. No, you can't just come in here, and I'm not just a mother," Valencia said low. "I'm a woman who earned her voice, and I will not let my child or any child be taught to shrink." Miss Warren's facade cracked. She tried to hold on to the authority, the image, the tightrope she'd walked for decades. But behind her eyes something flickered. Was it shame, regret, or rage at being seen? She looked around, desperate for a single nod, a whisper of support. But the aides stood still, the children stared, and no one came to her rescue. For the first time in that classroom, Miss Juliet Warren was alone. As Valencia turned toward Elijah, her voice softened. "She won't be your teacher anymore." Elijah blinked. He didn't smile, didn't speak, but his fingers, small, warm, slipped into hers and held on. They walked out together past the silent reception desk, past the gates of the school, and though the street was busy and the world still moved as if nothing had changed, something had. Later that day, the press room at City Hall filled fast. Reporters, staffers, parents, a few teachers too. Valencia stood at the podium, tall, steady, and said the words most people avoid. "This city is proud of its schools," she began. "But pride can blind us. What happened to my son isn't unique. It's the silence around it that makes it powerful." She didn't speak with rage. She spoke like a woman who had waited too long to be heard. Behind her, Elijah sat in the front row, hands folded, eyes watching. And when Valencia said, "It ends now," no one clapped. They just sat, quiet, listening. And for the first time in a long time, some of them really heard. In the weeks that followed, policies changed. New oversight was introduced. Rosehollow got a new head of curriculum. Teachers underwent racial bias training. Some quit. But in room 3B, now under Miss Carter's care, Elijah raised his hand. He asked questions. He painted. He laughed. And once, when asked why he painted trees with deep roots and cracked bark, he simply said, "Some trees grow stronger when you try to break them." That night back home, Valencia tucked him in. Dim light, book beside him. She asked, "How was today?" He looked at her and smiled just a little. Better. Outside his window, the night stretched wide, and that light in his room, it stayed on just a little longer because something that was once hidden had finally been seen. You think justice is always loud. Sometimes it walks in quietly, smiles gently, and burns everything rotten to the ground. What do you think? Who was right? Who was wrong? Drop your thoughts below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story if you believe in justice.